pals, I'm so glad you could make it to our Boo to You Readathon party for 2022. I am, of course, your ghost host, the Bookish Princess. Since our theme this year is the Haunted Mansion, I thought we'd contact one of Master Gracie's cousins and get a haunted mansion to celebrate in. Let's go. Thank you. Nice to see you again, George. Now, it is a brisk, chilly fall day, so let's go inside. I invited a Haunted Mansion expert to join us, so he'll be waiting.
How's it going, foolish mortals?
Spooky! Yes, Athos is here. Master Athos Gracie, Haunted Mansion expert.
At your scariest,
At your not so scary service?
Something spooky service. You get what I'm going for.
Yes, so we're going to give you a little tour of our beautiful haunted mansion. This was built in the 1800s, late 1800s. It has hot and cold running chills. The Spooks will be arriving for a midnight spree soon. Madame Leota is upstairs causing a mess. Here's our beautiful dining room. No one is swinging from the chandelier.
Yet.
Exactly. Later tonight. And we have a wonderful piano. Do you know the Grimm
For
Grinning
playing
Ghosts?
haunting tunes?
Yes.
I wish I did. I think maybe it'll play itself.
I know, we're waiting. I'm just waiting for it to start playing itself. What
Scary
is it?
masks.
Scary masks.
Yes. Possessed masks. Dare you to put one on.
I dare you. Boom, boom, boom. This is not so scary Readathon. This Readathon is friendly. It's not too spooky. It's the right amount. Whimsically spooky, that's right. No Haunted Mansion would be complete without a suit of armor.
Sir Spook-a-lot.
Sir Spook-a-lot. Great name. Yes, what have you been reading for the Boo to You Readathon, sir?
Mort d'Arthur.
The Mort d'Arthur, naturally. What else?
Emphasis on the mort.
So we have to decide which fireplace we will want to sit by for our ghost story discussion. There are several to choose from. Maybe this one? Before we begin our festivities, why don't we go upstairs and freshen up a bit. There are 999 happy haunts coming, so naturally we need plenty of rooms. Now later on, Athos is going to join us to discuss some of our favorite ghost stories. But for now, I thought I would share with you what I have been reading for the Boo to You Readathon 2022. I have my picks right here. As you may recall, our theme this year is the Haunted Mansion. So the prompt was to choose any line from the script or from the song Grim Grinning Ghosts. So I chose a variety of my favorite lines. Really, that script is so spectacular, so many ghoulish and delightful phrases. The first one I went with was an aura of foreboding, and for that one I went for My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. It was an excellent, excellent pick. I have to admit I haven't finished completely all of my picks yet, but I am well on my way. I think I will finish by the end of October. We have a few days to go before Halloween. But this is the Bookish Kingdom Book Club pick for this month, so we will be discussing it this weekend. I'll be sending out the link and posting it on Discord, but I've picked out one of the very suspenseful lines from here. Really, Daphne du Maurier does such a good job of making you more and less tense, like making you wonder if it's all in your head or if something is really amiss. It starts with a very macabre scene and like very heightened suspicion, but then you're sort of lulled into, you know, a feeling of, well, maybe that was all exaggerated, and then gradually she starts pinpricking you with the suspicions again. A low voice, almost inaudible, bade me come in. Although it was now dark and the candles had been lit, the curtains were not drawn, and she was sitting on the window seat looking out onto the garden. Her back was turned to me, her hands were clasped in her lap. She must have thought me one of the servants, for she did not move when I entered the room. Nothing had been moved in the room, no drawers opened in the small secretaire, no clothes flung down. There was none of the litter of arrival. "Good evening," I said, and my voice sounded strained and unnatural in the little room. She turned and rose at once and came towards me. It was happening so quickly that I had no time, no moment for reflection back upon the 100 images I had formed of her during the past 18 months. The woman who had pursued me through the nights and days, haunted my waking hours, disturbing my dreams, was now beside me. Very, definitely an excellent suspenseful book. See, I'm jumping at the clock ringing, just reading a passage from Daphne du Maurier. Very appropriate for the season. Another of my phrases was weird glows gleam. And for this one, I decided to go with Paralandra, which is the second part of C.S. Lewis's kind of space science fiction fantasy trilogy. This also was very seasonal and opened with a very spooky approach. The flat heath which spread out before me, for the village lies all behind and to the north of the station, looked like an ordinary heath. The gloomy 5 o'clock sky was such as you might see on any autumn afternoon. The few houses and the clumps of red or yellowish trees were in no way remarkable. Who could imagine that a little farther on in that quiet landscape I should meet and shake by the hand a man who had lived and eaten and drunk in a world 40 million miles distant from London, who had seen this earth from where it looks like a mere point of green fire, and who had spoken face to face with a creature whose life began before our own planet was inhabitable. Ransom is the character who has been having all of these extraterrestrial journeys. Ransom has met these supernatural creatures called Eldilla, and the narrator is thinking about what it would be like to actually meet them. We tend to think about non-human intelligences in two distinct categories which we label scientific and supernatural, respectively. We think in one mood of Mr. Wells's Martians, very unlike the real Malacandrians, by the by, or his Selenites. In quite a different mood, we let our minds loose on the possibility of angels, ghosts, fairies, and the like. But the very moment we are compelled to recognize a creature in either class as real, the distinction begins to get blurred. The distinction between natural and supernatural, in fact, broke down. And when it had done so, one realized how great a comfort it had been, how it had eased the burden of intolerable strangeness which this universe imposes on us by dividing it into two halves and encouraging the mind never to think of both in the same context. What price we may have paid for this comfort in the way of false security and accepted confusion of thought is another matter. Really interesting metaphysical, spiritual ideas really embedded all throughout the story. I'm really glad that I've been continuing with the series. I have heard that the third book goes a little bit off the rails. I think someone told me that Lewis somehow works his Oxford friends in, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. The series does have its kind of weak points, but it also has some strengths, and I've really been enjoying diving into it. I do, of course, have a couple of Victober crossovers on my Haunted Mansion list. The Heir of Redcliffe by Charlotte Mary Young and The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. I did discuss both of those in my October bookish vlog, so if you want to hear more about those two books, head over to that video. The Canterville Ghost was very quick, very fun. fun, very easy to finish. The Heir of Redcliffe I have not quite finished yet, but I have still been continuing to enjoy it. I am glad that I looked up the ending. So another phrase that I chose was shrouded in a daft disguise, and I picked Grimm's Fairy Tales for that one. This is a lovely Puffin Young Readers, Puffin Classics edition. When you go back and read the original fairy tales that inspired, Disney movies and Disney rides, they're always far more otherworldly and just odd and strange and unexpected than you would imagine. So I'm thinking maybe I will read one of these out loud to you guys when Athos and I are swapping ghost stories later, because there's definitely some ghostly elements.
Hello. Welcome to the cabinet. Can I help you? Good day.
Wait. So we have sat here before the fire in our haunted mansion. Athos says it's not really a haunted mansion. It's just a sort of Victorian
pleasant mansion.
It's a pleasant...
But for our purposes, it's a haunted mansion. It's October.
It's spooky. The leaves outside are very seasonal, spooky, drifting down, crunching underfoot. So we have some spooky stories here. I have one kind of witch story from Grimm's Fairy Tales, and I thought I would read a little excerpt from The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde, which I read for Boo to You this year. Of course, one of the lines in the Haunted Mansion is, "Our library is stocked with priceless first editions, only ghost stories, of course."
There you go.
So yes, what about your ghost stories,
Track down the
Athos?
best ones. Unfortunately, I only really have one. I've been slowed down on my Halloween reading because I've been trying to finish a St. Augustine book I've been reading. But yeah, and it's not that literary. It's sort of one from the internet, but it's really spooky.
That's okay. We'll enjoy it. Athos, though, was just telling me about a book I kind of want to read for Boo to You next year. It's ghost stories. Who's it by again?
Yes, so that one is his name, well, it's his pen name. I can't remember his real name, but he's a Irish author, and his pen name is Lord Dunsany. He was active in the early 1900s, and he's considered sort of one of the fathers of actually the fantasy genre as a whole. He did a whole
fascinating
fantasy pantheon he constructed and made a whole series of stories about it, and he influenced Tolkien, supposedly, along with
That's awesome.
H.P. Lovecraft. And he did a lot of sort of supernatural fiction. So there's a collection of his short stories called, I think, Gods, Men, and Ghosts. So that's on my list for after St. Augustine. I'm going to get into that one. St. Augustine.
Yeah, St. Augustine.
Yes, obviously it's not a spooky book, but he's trying to... he was trying to, I really liked about him how systematic he is, because he's currently in a debate with the Roman pagans, and he kind of addresses every notion of the pagan gods from every angle, and in his opinion, of course, the pagan gods are demons. So there was extensive discussion of demons, and he claimed that the ancient Egyptians had a secret art, because they claimed that their gods were statues. And first, St. Augustine addressed that by being like, well, that's ridiculous, because that's a created structure. How can that be divine? That doesn't make any sense. But then he was like, well, but some of the Egyptians claim that it's not just the statue, which some other ones do claim, but instead the Egyptians have a secret art of binding a demon to a statue to give the statue supernatural powers. So that's a little spooky.
That is a little spooky.
I've offered the ancient Egyptian arts described by St. Augustine is the October element of that book.
It ties in. Since you're our resident Haunted Mansion expert, do you have any favorite things from the ride or favorite lines?
Well,
from the script?
I read a few years ago the Portrait of Dorian Gray. Isn't that what it's called? And that, of course, is very well represented in the initial foyer with the decomposing, apparently not Master Gracie.
Oh, that's not Master Gracie.
I had always assumed it was Master Gracie, but relatively recently, there's a portrait of one of the portraits. I think he's holding a noose in one hand and he's holding an axe in another or something. Does this look? And he has a very gaunt face. Do you remember this
Is
portrait?
this
and saying that?
when you're in the Doom buggy or before
It's
you're in
while
the Doom
you're
buggy?
in the Doom buggy. It's somewhere in the
Okay,
ride.
like
I can't remember
that
where.
hallway and like the lightning strikes and then the portraits change.
I don't think it's in there. I think it might actually be in the door knocker hallway, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But
That's
apparently
Master
that,
Gracie?
and it was confirmed, which I think is stupid because I always thought the much more, debonair. How do you pronounce that word?
Debonair.
That's good. I always thought he was Master Gracie, but apparently the canonical one, and this was confirmed through
Disney
Parks merchandise, which had a image of this axe-wielding fellow labeled Master.
See, there are lots and lots of paintings and portraits throughout this mansion. So after dark,
This guy there, does he
who
look at
knows
all
what will
familiar to you?
happen? He does not.
I
I've
feel like
never
there's a
seen
painting of
him
him somewhere.
before.
He's kind of a gaunt-looking guy, and supposedly that's
I'll,
him. But maybe for our purposes, at least, a young Master Gracie could be the one in the other painting. So, anyway, but yes, that very much is Portrait of Dorian Gray, which is also Oscar Wilde, who will be represented today.
Update. Disney quietly corrects error after misidentifying haunted
Let's go!
on new merchandise.
It was an error. So there you go. That guy is not Master Gracie. Good to hear.
It is the ghost host.
That's the ghost host. Okay, so
okay,
canonically,
okay.
the weird guy with the axe is the ghost host.
Okay.
So
So
all
does
right.
that mean that Master Gracie is in fact the fading portrait?
I sounds like it's still unconfirmed. I guess it's all up in the air at the moment.
Leave it.
Although the Haunted
leave it
Mansion,
as a
did you
mystery.
hear it? There will be a movie. There's
Another
going-
one?
A new one.
There
which
was one
sounds
with,
like with the funny guy. Was it Will Smith? Who was that?
Will Smith. I think it was Will Smith.
Yes. So, but this
Was
one,
Raven
from what
in
I've
that? Or
heard,
did she just do a music video for it?
I
don't
can't
think-
remember.
I don't remember that movie
He brought
very
his
well.
daughter or something. But I think the new one is supposed to be less humorous.
More like
It's a 2023
true terror.
movie. I don't know how true terror it'll be, but
Although,
the
Jungle
description
Cruise,
just says a priest, a professor, and a paranormal investigator try to help a woman and her family after they unwittingly move into a haunted mansion in New Orleans.
Well,
So maybe we'll get more lore in that movie.
that'll
You
be
never know.
fascinating. So that would be the Disneyland Haunted Mansion, wouldn't it? Because
New Orleans.
the Disneyland Haunted Mansion is near Orleans Square. And then Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion, so the attraction in the Florida park at the Magic Kingdom is near Liberty Square. And Liberty Square is
So it has
based
more
on
of a
like New England.
Yes.
So you have a New England mansion, and then you have a sort of New
And of
Orleans
course,
mansion.
Paris has a Wild Wild West.
I
The Frontierland
forgot.
Haunted Mansion. So they
Yeah.
could have a whole series of
Oh my
movies
gosh.
describing different haunted mansions.
You're right. They could
Around
do
the
them
world.
globally.
There you go.
The mansion we're in tonight is very reminiscent of the Disneyland Haunted Mansion architecture. The Disney World architecture is more brick, whereas the Disneyland architecture has these very elegant balconies and everything. Oh, look, our ghost host is. What are you doing?
Is it our spooky?
This is the spooky interlude.
We're getting spooked right now. The camera just levitated. That was
It
incredible.
was like Madame Leota.
I don't know. I can't explain. I'm not even gonna try. Some things can't be explained. What can you say?
Well, since we were just talking about Oscar Wilde and people moving into a house, you said the new Haunted Mansion movie is like people moving into a house and it's haunted. This ties in perfectly to the Canterville Ghost, so maybe I'll read my excerpt from the Canterville Ghost first, and then we can
Let's
do
hear.
your excerpt. All right, so the whole theme of this story is that an American family has bought an old British home, and the British family warned, now we have had a ghost here for 500 years, it's our ancestor, and the Americans are like, not a big deal, don't worry about it, we can handle a ghost. So, at 11 o'clock, the family retired, and by 1:30, all the lights were out. Sometime after, Mr. Otis was awakened by a curious noise in the corridor outside his room. It sounded like a clank of metal and seemed to be coming nearer every moment. He got up at once, struck a match, and looked at the time. It was exactly 1 o'clock. He was quite calm and felt his pulse, which was not at all feverish. The strange noise still continued, and with it he heard distinctly the sound of footsteps. He put on his slippers, took a small oblong file out of his dressing case, and opened the door. Right in front of him, he saw, in the wan moonlight, is it wan or wan? An old man of terrible aspect. His eyes were as red burning coals, long gray hair fell over his shoulders in matted coils. His garments, which were of antique cut, were soiled and ragged, and from his wrists and ankles hung heavy manacles and rusty gyves. "My dear sir," said Mr. Otis, "I really must insist on your oiling those chains, and have brought you for that purpose a small bottle of the Tammany Rising Sun Lubricator. It is said to be completely efficacious upon one application, and there are several testimonials to that effect on the wrapper from some of our most eminent native divines. I shall leave it here for you by the bedroom candles, and will be happy to supply you with more, should you require it." With these words, the United States minister laid the bottle down on a marble table, and closing his door, retired to rest. "I really must insist on your oiling those chains." For a moment, the Canterville ghost stood quite motionless in natural indignation. Then, dashing the bottle violently upon the polished floor, he fled down the corridor, uttering hollow groans and emitting a ghastly green light. Just, however, as he reached the top of the great oak staircase, a door was flung open. 2 little white-robed figures appeared, and a large pillow whizzed past his head. There was evidently no time to be lost, so hastily adopting the 4th dimension of space as a means of escape, he vanished through the wainscoting, and the house became quite quiet. On reaching a small secret chamber in the left wing, he leaned up against a moonbeam to recover his breath and began to try and realize his position. Never in a brilliant and uninterrupted career of 300 years had he been so grossly insulted. He thought of the Dowager Duchess, whom he had frightened into a fit as she stood before the glass in her lace and diamonds, of the 4 housemaids who had gone into hysterics when he merely grinned at them through the curtains on one of the spare bedrooms, of the rector of the parish whose candle he had blown out as he was coming late one night from the library, and who had been under the care of Sir William Gull ever since, a perfect martyr to nervous disorders. Yes, the list goes on, and the Canterville ghost has to figure out how to deal
A way to spook these
with
people.
these new inmates. But isn't that great? Yeah, like leaned up against a moonbeam.
I like that
and
imagery
adopts the
there.
4th dimension
I
of
like how
space as a means of escape.
The original guy was trying. He sounded like he was trying to sell him the oil.
I know.
Listen, this is great stuff.
It's like
Exactly.
great,
kind
just what you're looking for. So
ghostly
yes, I think
currency.
you really like the Canterville Ghost, and it was a very quick run, so a fun Halloween read. If you guys are still looking for a Halloween read,
Whoa!
Madam, don't
Oh
mind
my
that.
gosh.
Madame Leota is just making things
A
levitate.
candelabra just floated by.
Isn't there one of those in Madame Leota's room?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think there's a
yeah,
great
there
many
you
of
go.
them. Bone chilling.
It was
Oh my goodness. You guys are not going to believe what we're seeing right now. Whoa! Some spooky stuff.
some spooky stuff. Do you want to read your spooky tale that you found
Sure.
for us?
So this one, of course, isn't very, like I said, I've been delayed on my spooky reading, so I had nothing too
But Augustine was
literary.
a good time.
There you go. So I had a little bit of a literary flair to it. This one is just one I read recently on Twitter. So it's from the digital dimension and was written as a forum post originally. And, like all good ghost stories, it's of course pitched as being, this actually happened. So, strap into your seats for a
Does it
tale.
get that little misinformation label?
Misinformation. It's on Twitter, right? Dad's friend, I'll call him Bob, is driving a rig out in the middle of nowhere, Oregon. Has to make a delivery by the following morning, so he decides to just drive through the night. It's like 1 a.m, no one else is on the roads. He hasn't seen another car in probably 100 miles. Is literally in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, the whole entire night sky lights up. Instantly like daylight. He slams on his brakes, has no idea what's going on. Everything stays lit for a good solid 10 seconds. He can see everything. Whatever's happening, it's not lightning. It doesn't stop or flicker at all.
It's not the Eye of Aldani.
You never know. Bob hunkers down, anticipating imminent nuclear devastation. Suddenly, the sky goes dark again. No sound, no blast wave. He sits there in the middle of the road, waiting for almost 5 minutes, then decides to keep going. Figures it was a meteor or something. Goes about 2 miles up the road, and sees a car with its flashers on stopped in the middle of the road. Stops a good distance away from it. There's not enough room to go around it. Front end of the car is crumpled like it hit something. Bob figures they probably hit a deer that got spooked whenever the meteor went over and perhaps ran into the road. He gets out of the cab and goes to see if the driver is okay. The driver is sitting on the ground by the driver's side door. He has his knees up and is resting his head on his arms. "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" Bob calls. He stops about 10 feet away for seemingly no reason. Something about the whole situation feels weird. Bob is one of those guys that always listens to his gut, so he stays put. "Gosh, my head is killing me," the guy says. But he doesn't lift his head up, so it's muffled. "Did you hit a deer?" Bob asks. He's getting more and more uneasy. Something is wrong. But he still can't figure out exactly what it is. The guy says he thinks he might have hurt his head, asks Bob to please help him. Bob takes a step forward, but his instincts are going wild. He looks at everything again. That's when he notices it. The car is all wrong. It looks like what someone thinks a car looks like. It has all the right pieces, but there's nothing extra, if that makes sense. That's what it says. Bob says it looked like a cheap Hot Wheels knockoff. It just looked wonky and wrong. He looks around the back of the car and realizes that not only is there no license plate, there's not even a trunk. It's just one solid piece of material with taillights on it. There's no manufacturer or model names. Bob knows cars, and this is nothing he's ever seen before. From where he's standing, he can see there's no tailpipe or even hubcaps. It's just the shape of a car. He starts to back up, and the guy asks him for help again. Bob tells him he can't help him, and that he'll call a tow truck when he gets to the next town. The guy lifts his head and looks at Bob, tells him he thinks he might have a concussion. Something is really, really wrong with the guy's face. But again, it takes Bob a second to figure it out.
This is really freaky!
Are you freaked out yet? This is your spooky Halloween story. Everything on the man's face was where it should have been, in their normal positions. He looked totally normal, except for the fact that his eyes and mouth were on upside down.
He looked totally normal, except for the fact...
Bob loses it and sprints back to his rig, climbs in, locks the door just in time for the man to slam into the door behind him. How did he get there so fast? He knocks on the glass and smiles at Bob, but because his mouth is upside down, it looks like a scream. Tells Bob to open the door so he can come in.
What?
Bob floors it, doesn't care if he hits the guy or not. His truck easily pushes the car out of the way. Whatever it is, it's light and it makes no sound when he hits it. Unfortunately, it's an anticlimactic ending. Bob got where he was going fine with no other problems. Bob swears to this day it was an alien. So there you go. That was my spooky story.
That was the freakiest story.
I know. I was like, that's pretty spooky when I read it.
That's
so like,
very
yeah,
spooky. Oh my gosh. That's terrifying. Wow.
Someone can make a compilation of internet spooky stories at some point.
Oh, I'm sure they're terrifying.
Then that can be literary. So.
Who knows what the literature of the future...
what form it'll take.
Instead of like people's collected letters, it'll be someone's collected tweets.
There you
go.
go.
They come out with a publication
Anonymous
of that,
collected
tweets. Well, hey, you know what? Actually, Grimm's fairy tales. So our next story comes from Grimm's,
That's like the
and this was
absolutely traditional. So
yeah,
now we've done an utterly modern spooky story.
And yet
completely.
The same kind of thing, because Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, didn't they kind of go around the German countryside?
You're right.
And stop and talk and ask people for their stories and then compiled them all.
And collected them all. So there could be a new Grimm's out of things like that.
Twitter Grimm's.
There you go.
But these aren't quite ghost stories, but they're freaky for sure. In fact, some of them, like the one I picked isn't even one of the freakiest ones. But I feel like some of them are, well, that one was kind of creepy with the... He slams into the door? Thank goodness Bob made it out. I see the whole time I was like, well, Bob had to have made it out because he told someone this story.
There you go.
So
the ending is spoiled.
All right, this is called The Blue Light. A soldier had served a king, his master, many years, till at last he was turned off without pay or reward. How he should get his living he did not know, so he set out and journeyed homeward all day in a very downcast mood, until in the evening he came to the edge of a deep wood. The road leading that way he pushed forward, but had not gone far before he saw a light glimmering through the trees, towards which he bent his weary steps, and soon came to a hut where no one lived but an old witch. The poor fellow begged for a night's lodging and something to eat and drink, but she would listen to nothing. However, he was not easily got rid of, and at last she said, I think I will take pity on you this once, but if I do, you must dig over all my garden for me in the morning. The soldier agreed very willingly to anything she asked, and he became her guest. The next day he kept his word and dug the garden very neatly. The job lasted all day, and in the evening, when his mistress would have sent him away, he said, I am so tired with my work that I must beg you to let me stay over the night. The old lady vowed at first she would not do any such thing, but after a great deal of talk, he carried his point, agreeing to chop up a whole cartload of wood for her the next day. This task, too, was duly ended, but not till towards night, and then he found himself so tired that he begged a third night's rest, and this, too, was given, but only on his pledging his word that he next day would fetch the witch the blue light that burnt at the bottom of the well. I love in these stories how casual it is. It's like, chops the wood, cleans the garden, fetches the blue light at the bottom of the well.
This is another daily task that everyone does.
When morning came, she led him to the well's mouth, tied him to a long rope, and let him down. At the bottom, sure enough, he found the blue light as the witch had said, and at once made the signal for her to draw him up again. But when she had pulled him up so near to the top that she could reach him with her hands, she said, Give me the light, I will take care of it, meaning to play him a trick by taking it for herself and letting him fall again to the bottom of the well.
Give me the lamp!
But the soldier saw through her wicked thoughts and said, No, I shall not give you the light till I find myself safe and sound out of the well. At this, she became very angry and dashed him with the light she had longed for many a year down to the bottom. Wow. And there lay the poor soldier for a while in despair, on the damp mud below, and feared that his end was nigh. But his pipe happened to be in his pocket, still half full, and he thought to himself, I may as well make an end of smoking you out. It is the last pleasure I shall have in this world. So he lit it at the blue light and began to smoke.
With the blue light? That's really good.
Up rose a cloud of smoke, and on a sudden a little black dwarf was seen making his way through the midst of it. What did you want with me, soldier? Said he. I have no business with you, answered he. But the dwarf said, I am bound to serve you in everything as lord and master of the blue light. Then first of all, be so good as to help me out of this well. No sooner said than done. The dwarf took him by the hand and drew him up, and the blue light, of course, with him. Now do me another piece of kindness, said the soldier. Pray, let that old lady take my place in the well. When the dwarf had done this and lodged the witch safely at the bottom, they began to ransack her treasures, and the soldier made bold to carry off as much of her gold and silver as he well could. Then the dwarf said, If you should chance at any time to want me, you have nothing to do but to light your pipe at the blue light, and I will soon be with you. The soldier was not a little pleased at his good luck, and went to the best inn in the first town he came to, and ordered some fine clothes to be made and a handsome room to be got ready for him. When all was ready, he called his little man to him and said, The king sent me away penniless and left me to hunger and want. I have a mind to show him that it is my turn to be master now. So bring me his daughter here this evening, that she may wait upon me and do what I bid her. That is rather a dangerous task, said the dwarf. But away he went, took the princess out of her bed, fast asleep as she was, and brought her to the soldier. Very early in the morning he carried her back, and as soon as she saw her father, she said, I had a strange dream last night. I thought I was carried away through the air to a soldier's house, and there I waited upon him as a servant. Then the king wondered greatly at such a story, but told her to make a hole in her pocket and fill it with peas, so that if it really were as she said, and the hole was not a dream, the peas might fall out onto the streets as she passed through and leave a clue to tell where she had been taken. She did so, but the dwarf had heard the king's plot, and when evening came and the soldier said he must bring him the princess again, he strewed peas over several of the streets, so that the few that fell from her pocket were not known from the others, and the people amused themselves all the next day picking up peas and wondering where so many came from. When the princess told her father what had happened to her the second time, he said, Take one of your shoes with you and hide it in the room you are taken to. The dwarf heard this also, and when the soldier told him to bring the king's daughter again, he said, I cannot save you this time. It will be an unlucky thing for you if you are found out, as I think you will. But the soldier would have his own way. Then you must take care and make the best of your way out of the city gate very early in the morning, said the dwarf. The princess kept one shoe on as her father bid her and hid it in the soldier's room. And when she got back to her father, he ordered it to be sought for all over the town. And at last it was found where she had hid it. The soldier had run away, it is true, but he had been too slow and was soon caught and thrown into a strong prison and loaded with chains. What was worse, in the hurry of his flight, he had left behind his great treasure, the blue light, and all his gold, and had nothing left in his pocket but one poor ducat. As he was standing very sorrowful at the prison grating, he saw one of his comrades, and calling out to him said, "If you will bring me a little bundle I left in the inn, I will give you a ducat." His comrade thought this very good pay for such a job, so he went away, and soon came back bringing the blue light and the gold. Then the prisoner soon lit his pipe, up rose the smoke, and with it came his old friend the little dwarf. "Do not fear, master," he said. "Keep up your heart at your trial, and leave everything to take its course, only mind to take the blue light with you." The trial soon came on. The matter was sifted to the bottom, the prisoner found guilty, and his doom passed. He was ordered to be hung forthwith on the gallows tree. But as he was led out, he said he had one favor to beg of the king. "What is it?" said his majesty. "That you will deign to let me smoke one pipe on the road." "Two, if you would like," said the king. Then he lit his pipe at the blue light, and the black dwarf was before him in a moment. "Be so good as to kill, slay, or put to flight all these people," said the soldier. "And as for the king, you may cut him into 3 pieces." Then the dwarf began to lay about him and soon got rid of the crowd around. But the king begged hard for mercy, and to save his life, agreed to let the soldier have the princess for his wife and to leave the kingdom to him when he died.
And that's it?
And that's it!
Wow,
There
it all
it
worked
is.
out.
Wow,
it's very, I mean, at least the overall premise is very Genie Aladdin-like, isn't it? With the
definitely. And there was one that was the princess, the lady and the lion, something like that, that was totally Beauty and the Beast. Except it was, obviously, we're spoiling these Grimm's fairy tales for you. It was really fascinating because it actually is only a very superficial resemblance to Beauty and the Beast because the father has 3 daughters. They each ask for a gift. One of them, of course, 2 ask for like gold and pearls, and the youngest kind daughter just asks for a rose. So he picks the rose, but it turns out to be from this enchanted prince's garden who's a lion, half the day. And the lion is like, "In return for your life, whoever first meets you when you get home, you have to give them to me." And of course, it's his youngest daughter. But the youngest daughter marries the prince because he's a prince half the time, and it goes pretty well. But then he turns into a dove because she accidentally lets a lantern light touch him. It's a very...
These things happen.
These stories, it's like they don't end where you think they would. Like, it's not like a conventional ending. Like, it's kind of like a wandering...
act or something.
Yes. But then his wife finally finds him because he has to be a dove for 7 years. She finally finds him, and he's somehow...
He flew away.
Right, he flew away, and she tried to follow him, but then she lost track of him, and he was battling a dragon who was actually a princess in disguise, another different princess. Unrelated princess, and... In
the form of a dove.
Right.
Okay.
So his wife... No.
He was in the form of a dove fighting a dragon.
Fighting a dragon, and the dragon is secretly a princess, just the way the dove is secretly a prince. So the prince's wife helps slay the dragon. See, people are always like, "Oh, girl power is so modern." No, it's not. It's right here in Grimm's fairy tales. The wife slays the dragon.
Both the dragon is a woman.
Yes, exactly. But she doesn't slay the dragon fast enough. And when she slays the dragon, both the prince and princess who are enchanted become human again. And the evil princess, former dragon, steals her husband and takes him away to the...
In the form of a dove or human?
Human.
Okay.
So usually it's the princess who's stolen away. In this case, it's the prince who's stolen away. And then the wife has to like connive or not connive, but like ask help from the sun and the moon and the wind. And eventually she's able to outwit the evil princess and get her husband back. But it was absolutely fascinating.
Cool. Didn't follow the rival dragon princess.
The beast needs to turn into a dove, and then Belle has to follow him, and then the evil princess kidnaps the beast, and then, instead it was Belle's Enchanted Christmas, which was like cute, but not like the Lady and the Lion.
There you go.
Well, there we have it. Some fun spooky stories, spooky ghost stories. for Booty Readathon. I hope you guys had a great October with lots of spooky reading. Let us know what you were reading down in the comments.
Lots
that
of
would
pumpkins.
be fabulous. Yeah,
Lots
lots of
of
pumpkins.
jack-o'-lanterns.
Plenty of ghosts.
All
Maybe you
manner of
listen
spookage.
to Grimm Grinning Ghosts.
A few times.
They come out to socialize.
Yeah. Our 999 happy haunts are currently filing in.
Yes, we're gonna have a swinging time. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll talk to you again soon, and hope you have a magical and a spooky day. Bye, guys.
See you guys.
What was unexpected?
The middle shelf is perfectly balanced by the two items on it, and if you remove one, the whole thing
It's a
seems to
trick
fall
shelf.
over.
That's the sort of thing you'd find at a haunted mansion. Although I can confirm this mansion is not haunted, having stayed in it overnight. It's so funny how this worked out because I did not actually book this just for a Booty Readathon video. We're on a family road trip and we happened to be passing through La Crosse, Wisconsin is where we are. And this gorgeous place popped up on Airbnb and it wasn't even all that expensive, probably because it's in the middle of the week. But once we were deciding to stay here, I was like, well, of course, this would be the perfect setting for our Booty Readathon 2022 wrap-up. Thanks for all of you who have participated, commented, posted your own TBRs. It's been so much fun to see everybody's spooky Disney reading this month. It has been very Northanger Abbey-ish to stay here because you're constantly like, what's that noise? But it's just the dryer. Or what does this little secret note say? And it's just something left behind by, you know, an inventory of plates or something super ordinary. It's called the Carol Pettibone House, I believe. But it's so beautiful. Why don't people build like this anymore? Like the tall ceilings. And my dad was noticing that like the walls, look at how thick they are. There could be secret passages in all of them because they're so thick. Yes, I wish I could live in a place like this. But it's fun to stay here just for the night. So glad you could make it to our 5th annual, oh, 1 second. Now later on, Athos is going to join us to share some of our favorite ghost stories. But for now, I thought we would sit and have some tea and cake, and I would tell you about what I have been reading for the Booty Readathon 2022. Maybe this one?
One more time. Stop.
All right.